And we're on the air. Good afternoon, Europe. Welcome to the third keynote of this marathon of the Best Virtual Summit 2020. Today, we have with us a very special guest, the woman that led the online education of the prestigious Faculty of Aerospace Engineering of Delft University of Technology. So, Gillian is an associate professor at TU Delft, teaching aerospace structures and materials, and she is also part of the board of directors of our partner CEFI. But Gillian is also super interested in engineering education, and she has a lot of experience in this field. Today, Gillian is going to talk about the outcomes of the Prefer project, an initiative that aims at helping engineering students to make career choices. So if you're struggling a bit to make decisions for your professional future, get comfy because this talk is for you. That's all. Gillian, welcome to this keynote. The floor is all yours.
Right, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. Right, let me share my screen and there we are. Hi, so thank you very much for inviting me to speak today, and I'm really happy to speak to you all today. My name, as said, is Gillian Saunders-Smits, and on behalf of CEFI, the European Society of Engineering Education, I want to share the outcomes of a European project with you. We have created a great tool that we specifically developed for our students and as well as for young engineers. Because even in normal days, it's already hard to find a job. But right now, in this current crazy times, it's going to be even harder. So that's why it's really important that you make the right choice and that you go in more prepared than you ever do, because it's your choice and no one else's. So how difficult can it be? Well, that may actually surprise you. 33% of young engineers change jobs within the first year. And after 3 years, the numbers are even worse. 81% of engineers, young engineers, after graduating, change jobs within 3 years. I was one of them, by the way. So why is that? Well, if we also asked all these students what their reasons was, and 60% of them say that the job they actually had to do, the content of the job, was the main reason for changing. Others listing such as career opportunities, a higher salary, or working in a larger company. But as you can see from the numbers, that was a far less important criterion. So it really matters what you do when you grow up. Although, being honest, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But hey. So why does this happen? Well, if you look a bit more in research, is you very often see that there is an expectations mismatch. The question arises from many different HR studies, but also engineering education studies, is do students know what engineering is and what engineers do? They know what their professors do, but we are all researchers. Do they know what engineers do? Also, there's a lack of self-reflections. Have people actually thought about what kind of engineer do they want to be? Generally speaking, most of us have the following ambition in life, which is graduate, keep mom and dad happy, get that diploma, and get a job and a house and start all these other things. But we don't actually think about the actual job that we want to do from day to day, what keeps us entertained, because trust me, there's only so much Minesweeper you can play on a computer if you're bored. And skills mismatch. Do you have the right skills? So you're an engineer, so you know how to engineer, but do you have the right other skills to connect in the function that you do? So this is where the Prefer project comes in. Prefer, it stands for Professional Roles and Employability of Future Engineers, is a collaboration, a European Knowledge Alliance of 3 universities, TU Delft, KU Leuven and TU Dublin, together with industry partners, Siemens in the Netherlands, ENGIE in Belgium, and SB in Ireland, as well as the engineering federations, so the professional societies of engineers, so the Dutch Royal Institute of Engineers, the Belgian Institute of Engineers, and Engineers Ireland, as well as a test developer in the form of a BDO, and Agoria, which is a employers association that is very keen on maintaining skills levels so that companies remain competitive. To ensure that we have a European-wide coverage and advice, we also asked FEANI, that is the European Association of the Engineering Professional Organizations, and CEFI, well known to you, the Society for Engineering Education, to also take part. And together, we developed a professional roles model. This roles model is based on an existing business model by Tracy and Wiersema, and it basically says that all engineering functions, especially when you're an early career engineer, and we define that as sort of the first 5 years or so, falls into one of these three roles. You have product leadership, and product leadership are engineers that develop and design innovative products and technology. They're often not got a very large scale solution yet. There may not even yet be a concrete market for it. It's more the research and innovation part of things. And then you have operational excellence, and that is the process optimization. So those are engineers that optimize existing products, technologies, software, or processes. They're optimized to make them more efficient or more reliable. And then the last role that we have, I always call it the salesperson, but then I'm doing people a great injustice. It's customer intimacy. It is when you are engineers that provide tailored solutions for specific problems of customers. They analyze the problem and develop technologies that are fit for purpose for their client. And of course, sometimes overlaps occur. As you can see, we've deliberately not made them three separate circles. The circles overlap. There are possibilities. The smaller the company, that the roles overlap. And for instance, you could argue that a university lecturer is half product leadership in terms of research and customer intimacy in terms of teaching and providing custom-made solutions for their students. So this is the model that we developed. And we developed this model together with industry, together with industry and with students. So what we did is we went out and gave this model to industry and said, do you recognize these models? So various representatives from industry who regularly hire young engineers straight out of universities sat down and looked at all this. And the second thing we asked them, are there any specific non-technical skills that they need to be good at for this particular job function? You can get this from different job advertisements, but you can also really get this by looking at what is it that you do, which competence do you have? Now, some you share with all of them, and some are specific for a role. And we then also talk to students, said, do you recognize this? Is this a model you identify with? If we describe engineers like this to you, is this something that you can relate to? Because that's also really important. So if we then look at the required competency, you can see that if you want to be in product leadership, you have to be very good at innovating and persuasiveness and influence, because you really want people to buy into your project, give you more money to research it further, and to convince people that your solution works. Because if you're going to tell the professor that you've just developed the next new Nobel Prize solution, you have to have a good argument. You also have to have a vision to go along, and you have to persevere, because if anyone has ever done a little bit of research, you'll know it never gets done in one day. Some of them, they share things like creativity and client focus with customer intimacy, and initiative with operational excellence. And each has their own different skills that you must master, different competencies that you have to know about. So with these different competencies, how do you know what to do? It's great to have this role model, nice theoretical role model. I can ask you, what do you think you are? But that really doesn't cut it. That will be counterintuitive for an engineer, right? Just having a theoretical model and not actually doing something with it. So as we were all engineers on it, we created two instruments, a tool that looks at your motivation and a tool that looks at your current skill level. We've called them Prefer Explore and Prefer Match. In Explore, that's a short test that determines your preferred role. And based on things that describe day-to-day situations in types of work that you do, you're asked to say, which of these things do you like to do the most? And which of these activities do you like to do the less? And from there, you discover the best and the least fit role based on 10 questions. And don't worry if you say, where's the link? All coming. But I want you to pay attention to me first, and you can play on your phone with the test later. So then we also have the Prefer Match, and that is actually tells you what you excel in. What we do is per professional role, takes about 15 minutes, and you can take them for each role. Doesn't necessarily have to be your preferred role. We give you realistic scenarios, and we give you a number of responses to this scenario. And for each response, you have to indicate how appropriate that response would be. And we compare your response not to some arbitrary thing, but we compare your response to what the industry professionals said they felt they would say in that particular situation. So you get to rate yourself compared to experienced engineers. Oh, it's not just psychological data somewhere. No, we've really asked several or large numbers of engineers, what would be your response? What would be a good response? And from that comes a great feedback report, which tells you how well your current skill level aligns with the roles that you want to carry out, and which competencies that were tested you were good at, and which competencies you still have to develop. And we don't leave it there. We also try and give you some practical advice on how to improve. And that is not, oh, take a course. It can be anything. If you want to work on your leadership, you could also volunteer to be a scout leader or join a board, the board of best, for instance. So there is all these many different ways. Some are free, some will cost money, some might actually get you credit, but how you can develop skills. These are not necessarily skills that have to be part of your curriculum or have to be part of social life. It's up to you how you gain those skills. All this document of all this test does is to make you aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. And that also helps you when you go to your job interview. You have an advantage because they ask you, name yourself a weak point. And that's something we very often find very difficult, although mine's easy, I talk too much. But for others, you can use the report and say, look, I'm not very good at helicopter view because I like to focus on details. And those are some of the things that you can honestly say, and then say, but I'm working on improving that because I'm trying to do a course or I volunteered for. And those are some of the things where you make a real good impression because you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And that makes you look more mature than the person next to you that may have never looked at themselves in that way. So that then brings us to the big question. Which engineering role do you prefer? Now, I did think whether I would not wanted to do a whole online polling system, but as technology has this habit to fail, I thought I'd do it differently. What I have here for you is, if you take a quick screenshot of this or point your phone at it, is the direct web link to our tool. The tool is free. It's anonymous. At the end, you can get the report sent to you and then you send your email, but that email isn't stored. It's only used for you to send all your data off. And then you can find out which engineer you are. You can take Explore and you can take Match, and they'll be there for at least the next 5 years. That is the promise we made to EU for anyone to use. And I think we have a little bit of time left. I have embedded a video, which, haha, oh. Technology is letting me down here. So I think there, I'm going to give it back to Daniel because the technology is indeed letting me down. But the video can also be seen on the website. Daniel, for sure.
Okay, Jillian, no worries. Okay, then the good news is no video. We have actually more time for some questions. I'm sure like our audience will be super happy to engage with you and ask some more details about these amazing projects. So actually we have a few of them already. The first one is a little bit long, but let's go for that. One of our audience like, what is the main factor that leads to a student to be either product leadership or a customer intimacy?
The main factor.
Yes, like between this product leadership role or the customer intimacy role.
I had a very long discussion with the test developers. I said, they're all engineers. They all want to figure out what the algorithm is behind it so they know what to score. Yeah, but that's not what that's what we do. So the main difference is I think the bottom line is an operational excellence engineer tends to focus on keeping the operation running. I think the biggest contrast is if you imagine an operational excellence engineer, for instance, is in charge of the production line of a company and not of the invention of the new product on the production line. But they are interested in making sure that there is less faults, less failures in the system. They also look at whether or not the design works in practice and what needs to be changed. And the product innovation is really a few technology levels later, if lower. If you are familiar with the technology strategy levels, with 1 being I have an idea and 9 being it's in the shelf on the in the shop. The product development engineer is really working on the lower technology levels. This could be research at university, the research in the R&D department, some of the stuff that you develop that you as a person are very proud of, but may never see the light of day for the general audience because there were so many other considerations when you made all these different prototypes. So it's a different focus. One is really on a more freer way of thinking, and the other one is far more about the bottom line. How do I keep my company running? How do I keep my industry running?
Okay, Gillian, thanks so much. You have talked about the whole tool and the test that will raise a lot of awareness, self-awareness of engineers to understand what they are aiming for and how good they are at skills and so on. But someone asked, what is actually next for this project? Like, are you planning to disseminate to other universities apart from the ones that are being partnered in the project?
Well, today is for me one of the dissemination events, which is why I was really happy when you said, oh, would you be willing to give the keynote? Yes. And I also promised the chairman of Best Delft that we would do, we were going to all do a face-to-face event. Everything changed. And so we are looking at doing several events with students. We've held a big event at the European Young Engineers Conference, their virtual summit a couple of weeks ago. And basically have Zoom will present, I think, is the, I used to say have passport will travel, but somehow that's no longer a thing. But yeah, we're more than happy to share this with us, with a brighter audience. We are also sharing it on the several CEFI conferences, and we're hoping that many of our colleagues pick it up. In Delft, we are now looking at, as part of our campus climate project, for instance, to make sure it goes. There will be a monthly webinar on the tool on which type of engineer you are for students, in part to keep the campus going. In Leuven is actually going to be part of their entire curriculum. So students will be introduced from day one at the engineering technology department, and day one of this is the concept, and keep developing all the way until they've got their master's. So they have an idea of where they want to go. They are going to focus their curriculum along these roles.
Okay, very interesting. We have more. At some point, you were saying that, well, one thing is to be self-aware, but the other is actually implementing all those skills inside the curriculum. So do you think which skills should be incorporated inside the curriculum of your bachelor, master, and so on, and which are the other skills that you should develop through other ways, through organizations or any other volunteering experiences?
I think at minimum we should expose students to a basic level to all, because if I'm a great believer in equal chances of success for people. So it really depends on your ability, on your the facilities you have available for you to do some of these things. It's great to say, oh, go volunteer somewhere, but if you have to study really hard and have to hold down a job, that might be more difficult. Having said that, some companies also offer opportunities to develop. And I know that we've had students who have made it all the way through assistant manager at a McDonald's, and that's also affecting your leadership skills. So I can't look in your personal situation. I think as educators, we should at least make sure that you can find your way through our courses. What we've also found is if we look at all our course descriptions, we very often don't put the skills that you develop in a course in there. So if you're lucky when you're doing a design project in a team, it says teamwork. That's about all it says. Whereas, of course, in teamwork, you also have to critically reflect on what you say and on your design, and because you're going to have to compromise between the 3 or 4 different concepts that you develop as a group, and you can't just pick yours because you think it's the best. This is also some of these things. So there's a lot of hidden curriculum, and I think that's the other thing that we're really trying to do is to create awareness amongst our colleagues that it's very sensible that if uh, skills are practiced, that we name that in course descriptions. That in this course you will also practice skills in etc. Because that can be different for each course. So that is another thing. And of course, there's many often skills courses being offered as well. And we're trying to also find a way, what would be a good way to get students more aware of this and practice those more. And don't forget all those online courses. Many of them are currently free or very cheap, or the universities have offered a temporary free pass for many of them. I know that we, for instance, in Delft have a deal with edX, which is great.
All right. Perfect, Gillian. Thanks for sharing with that. We have actually the last question as we head into this very end. It's actually quite simple. Coming back to dissemination, you as far as what you have shared with us is you want to share this in CEFI and without BEST and other ways, but mostly Europe. Do you think this project could make an impact globally?
Yes, the model is universal. That's why you can see Siemens is a global company. Both NG and SB work. We also talk to various aerospace companies because of their global presence. So yeah, the model is universal. It can work all over the place. And as you said, it's free and we intend to keep it going. And if it's still very popular after 5 years' time, we have to find a new way of making sure it maintains.
All right, Jaden. Then thanks you very much for this amazing keynote about the brief project and these tests that I encourage all of you, all the audience, to then rewind a bit and click on the link and do the test, because probably it's going to be super useful for your future career. So the organizing team and I would love to thank Gillian for being here with us today and sharing these ideas and knowledge about the brief project in the Best Virtual Summit 2020. And although Gillian and I will leave, I encourage all of you to stay close to the streaming, because in 5 minutes, we're going to have another key speaker with us. We'll travel from Delft to London to meet Emmanuel Attile, who is the director of the Integrated Engineering Program at the University College of London. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.